Hi there. Welcome to another comparison test by Motor Trend. Today, we're talking about compact crossover plug-in hybrid. Admittedly, it's not the most exciting segment in the automotive kingdom, but at least these two are trying. Let's meet the contenders. To my right, we have a Toyota RAV4 Prime XSE, and the XSE is important because that's Toyota speak for sorta sporty. On my left, the all-new Dodge Hornet RT, and what Alfa Romeo doesn't want you to know is it's basically an Alfa Romeo Tonale with the Dodge badge. These cars are much more powerful than you might think. This one makes over 300 horsepower, and this little guy almost makes 400 pound-feet of torque. Since they're plug-in hybrids, you can drive quite a while on battery power alone. When that's gone, boom, the engine kicks on and you're good to go. Here's the downside though, they ain't cheap. Each of these costs over $52,000. So if you're in the market for one, which should you buy? Let's find out. The RAV4 is a tricky design to talk about. Yeah, it's got the angry eyes and the big mouth that all Toyotas seem to have for some reason, but it's almost like they're ashamed of what's going on the side. Here's what I mean. There is so much black masking parts of this car. Like, yeah, okay, SUV's got to have fenders, but like, look at the size of that sill. Lots of cars do that. Black makes things look smaller than they are, hence my t-shirt, but like, look what they do to the roof. The paint stops here. It's like you're paying for a white car and they're only selling you 2/3 of one. And then the design is super busy on top of that. There's a line there, a line there. This line does this. The taillights stick out furthest. I don't know. It's weird that such a busy, kind of extroverted design somehow manages to remain so anonymous. The Hornet is a much more successful design, primarily because you can see the family resemblance to other desirable products, like the Dodge Charger. Who doesn't want one of them? Plus, look at that badge. No one does badges as cool as Dodge, from the Hellcat to the Demon to the Rumblebee and now the Hornet. That's just cool. As for the rest of the side goes, hey, that's a beautiful Alfa Romeo. No, really, it's a shrunken Stelvio, but for the price of a Dodge. They went ahead and incorporated the tail pipes. They've got a beautiful wraparound tail light and Acapulco gold covering almost every inch of the vehicle. Based on nothing but looks alone, I much prefer the Hornet here to the RAV4. My big question about the interior of the Toyota RAV4 Prime is, am I sitting inside of a $53,000 automobile from a quality standpoint? To me, the answer is no. I'm looking around, touching things. This is $38,000 tops. Toyota's always gonna have this problem. They can't just start using nicer material in here because then you're stepping on the toes of Lexus. As far as Prime specific technology goes, I've got a few buttons down here that'll cycle me through my various driving modes, hybrid, EV only, preserve the state of battery charge, and there's a sport mode. So are there any good things about the inside of the Toyota RAV4? Yeah, I mean, the screen is pretty big, a little tacked on, but pretty big, and the seats are fairly comfortable. I have the same question about the $52,405 Dodge Hornet that I do about the RAV4. Is this interior worth the money? Well, hey, it's way better. If you look at the quality of the materials, and I'm talking about stuff like the vents, the switchgear, the stitching, the leather, it's much nicer than what you find in the RAV4. In fact, you might say, hey, that looks like Alfa Romeo quality. In fact, if you happen to own an Alfa Romeo, you might say, why, those are my shift paddles. This is my steering wheel. This is where the start button would be on my Giulia. This is the door handle. These are the lock switches. You get the idea. There's a lot of tonality in this thing. Like these seats. They're covered in fabric instead of leather like you get in the Alfa, but they do a much better job of holding you in place during sporty driving than the seats in the RAV4 do. That said, RAV4 has air conditioned seats. This does not, and it should. Listen, Dodge, you know the American market. We sweat a lot. Give us AC seats. Over in Italy, whatever, but come on. Despite that, despite not having cooled seats, I much prefer the slightly more cramped interior of the Hornet to that of the more spacious, but give me a break, RAV4 Prime. What surprised me the most about the Toyota RAV4 Prime is that in a straight line, this is faster than the Hornet. I would have thought that the Dodge, since it weighed less and it makes more torque and it has almost the same horsepower, it would have been quicker, but no. 5.5 seconds to 60 miles an hour, whereas the Hornet takes 5.6, and that gap lasts through the quarter mile. Now, every other performance metric there is, both observable and subjective, the Hornet smokes it. It has better brakes than this does, it likes to go through corners, it has way better tires that don't squeal for their lives constantly, and the Dodge has a 6-speed automatic, whereas this has a CVT, meaning if you just touch the throttle, it's screaming as if it's about to just keel over and die. So, you know, pretty quick for a hybrid, seems to be built pretty well, but for $53,000, there's many more sporty vehicles out there for you to buy. Please believe me, as far as going around corners on a windy road, the Hornet eats the RAV4 alive. This thing is great to drive. However, I want to talk to you about its plug-in hybridness, actually both vehicles. Right now I'm in full EV mode. If this was fully charged, I could go 31 miles on the battery. Toyota's got a bigger battery, weighs a little more, goes 42 miles, not bad. If this has a full tank of gas, the range is like 200, 203, depending on how you're driving. Add it up, you're under 250 miles of range on a single tank charge. Toyota, though, tells you fully fueled, fully charged, 500 miles of range. So if you need to, commute and never stop for gas, that's a consideration on the Toyota. However, let's say you're driving sporty. I put this in sport mode and it's going to activate the engine, and when I'm done, I'll have a fully charged battery. Whereas in the RAV4, in the same mode, my battery will be at 0, which is something to think about if you want to creep home in EV mode after your canyon run. Before we get to the actual conclusion, I want to say that both cars are flawed in the same way, and that's they're kind of gutless, pointless gasoline engines. If these were full EVs, they would be so much better. They compete with like the Hyundai Ioniq 5 or the Tesla Model Y. Not everyone's ready for that. I know, I digress. Blame Toyota in this case. They're the ones who stuck the XSE badge onto their $53,000 plug-in and said it's supposed to be sporty, yet I just got out of the car 15 minutes ago and I can barely remember driving it. Hats off to Dodge, and a little bit of a hat tip to Alfa Romeo for finding some white space in this segment and carving out something totally new. Who knew there could be a fun-to-drive plug-in hybrid family small compact crossover thingy bopper? And that's why the winner of this comparison test is the 2024 Dodge Hornet RT.